True Beach Horror Stories. Story 1. The Woman in the Water, Konkan Coast, India. The sun was dropping fast behind the horizon when the four friends arrived at the black sand beach between Alibag and Navagaon. They were college students who had just finished their final exams, and what they wanted more than anything was to save money and have an adventure. Instead of booking hotel rooms, they decided to sleep on different beaches each night. The locals had told them about this one beach in particular. They said it was always deserted, always quiet, always empty. That should have been their first warning. By 7 in the evening, the black sand stretched out before them like something from another planet. The water glittered in the moonlight with an eerie, almost hypnotic beauty. They built a small fire, sat around eating snacks, and drank cans of soda. For a while, everything felt perfect. The beach was theirs alone. The world felt peaceful. One of the boys had brought a flashlight. They decided to explore, walking along the water's edge with a torch beam cutting through the darkness. That is when the sound started. Strange noises came from the water. At first, they thought it was just an animal, maybe a fish jumping or waves hitting rocks in a peculiar way. But the sounds grew more deliberate, more intentional. One of the boys said he thought he heard someone calling his name, his actual name, being called by someone in the black water. Then he saw it. The friend who was walking closest to the shore glanced over his shoulder and his entire body went rigid with fear. In the dim light of the flashlight, something was rising from the water. It was a woman's head, floating just above the surface, watching them. Her mouth was slowly opening. When she saw them looking at her, he let out a scream that echoed across the empty beach. The torch beam swung toward her, moving through the darkness. But before the light could reach her, she sank back into the water. Gone. Vanished like she had never been there. But they all heard it. The sound of water closing over something or someone. They ran back to the fire. Their hands were shaking. They decided to try to sleep. 2 of them got into the car while 2 others tried to stay outside by the fire, telling each other that it was nothing, just tricks of the dark, just their imaginations running wild in an unfamiliar place. Around 1 in the morning, one of the boys sleeping outside woke up screaming. He had seen something black, a figure floating across the beach. When he looked toward the water, he saw her again, the woman's head peering at him from the water, watching him with eyes that did not blink. As soon as he started yelling, she disappeared again. The 2 boys outside ran to the car. Now all 4 of them were packed inside, doors locked, not speaking. They sat in terrified silence, listening to every sound the beach made. They tried to convince themselves that they would be okay until morning. At 3 in the morning, something changed. They heard screams. They heard cries for help coming from outside. One of the boys was missing. Panicked, the other 3 scrambled out of the car and raced down to the beach. In the water, they could see their friend thrashing around, screaming, struggling against something they could not see. They jumped in and managed to drag him out before he drowned. He was completely numb, his eyes staring at nothing. When he finally could speak, he told them what happened. He had woken up needing to go to the bathroom, so he went down to the beach and started urinating into the water. That is when he saw the head again, the woman's head floating up from the depths, but this time something grabbed him. Something strong grabbed his legs and pulled him down into the dark water. He felt a grip that was impossibly powerful. He could not break free. As the water filled his lungs and he thought he was going to die, he heard something laughing. Not a human laugh. Something else. Something old and angry and hungry. They got him out. They got him out and they got into the car immediately. They drove to the nearest village, not stopping, not looking back. In the morning, they asked the locals about the beach. What they learned made their blood run cold. The beach was notorious. It was known for being haunted. Many people had disappeared over the years. Many people had drowned in those waters under circumstances that could not be explained. Over 30 years ago, a local girl had been attacked on that beach. Someone had assaulted her, and then, while she was still alive, they had cut off her head. Ever since that day, ever since that terrible murder, people who visited the beach felt things in the water pulling at them. Fishermen reported seeing something that looked like a woman's severed head floating above the surface. And now, the locals said, the beach was abandoned. Nobody went there anymore. Nobody dared. The four friends never went back. The boy who was dragged into the water never went back to any beach. Some things they learned cannot be unseen. Some things, once they touch you, do not let you go. Story 2. The Gray Man's Warning, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. 1822, the coast of South Carolina was hit by a storm so powerful that it reshaped the entire landscape. But more than that, it brought a ghost, or at least that is what people began to say. The Gray Man of Pawleys Island. According to legend, he was a young man, a fiancé who was killed in a terrible accident while traveling home. He had been away studying in Europe for 2 years, separated from the woman he loved. He was on his way back to her when he died in a freak accident that stole him from this world forever. But apparently, death did not stop him. The girl he loved, left heartbroken and alone, began taking long walks on the beach at Pawleys Island in the late afternoons. She would walk for hours hoping for some kind of miracle, some way to turn back time and bring him back to life. Then one day she saw him, a man dressed all in gray standing there on the beach watching her. She recognized him immediately. It was him, her dead lover standing before her as if he had never left, as if the past 2 years had been nothing but a dream. She ran toward him, and then he spoke to her, warning her of a terrible storm that was coming. He told her to leave, to take her family away from the island. And then he vanished, just disappeared like morning mist burning away in the sun. That night he came to her in a dream and delivered the same message. Leave, get away. A storm is coming that will destroy everything. When she told her family what she had seen, they thought she had lost her mind. The stress of her grief had broken something inside her. They packed her up and took her away to Charleston to see doctors, to get treatment for what they believed was a mental illness caused by her despair. A few days later, the great storm of 1822 hit Pawleys Island like the wrath of God. It destroyed almost everything there. Houses were torn apart, the landscape was reshaped, but there was one house that stood untouched, completely undamaged, while all around it was devastation and ruin. It was her house. Since that day, people have reported seeing the Gray Man. He appears before the worst storms, before the hurricanes that could kill, before the tempest that could wipe whole communities away. If you see him, a tall man dressed entirely in gray, silent and watchful, it means you need to leave. It means death is coming in the form of wind and water. And if you follow his warning, if you evacuate, then when you return, your home will be waiting for you, untouched and safe while everything around it has been destroyed. In 1954, he appeared before Hurricane Hazel. In 2018, residents saw him walking the beaches before Hurricane Florence made landfall. Always silent, always dressed in gray, always watching with eyes that understand the power of the ocean and the fury of the sky. The Gray Man has never been wrong, and those who have listened to his warning have lived to tell about it. Those who ignored him sometimes did not. Some say he is still out there, still walking those beaches, still waiting for the next storm, still searching for a way to protect the place where love once died and was never truly forgotten. Story 3, Jenny Dixon's Ghost, New South Wales. Australia. On a stretch of road near Jenny Dixon Beach in New South Wales, Australia, something terrible happened in the 1970s. A hitchhiker was picked up by a motorist. Where they went, what happened in that car, no one was ever certain. But the hitchhiker, a woman, was beaten savagely and left to die on the side of the road. She perished there, alone and in pain. The person who did it was never caught. Justice was never served. But death, it seemed, did not end her story. Over the years, visitors to the area began reporting something strange. They would see a woman walking along nearby Wilfred Barrett Drive, the very road where she had been attacked. She was always dressed the same way, always appearing around the same time of day, Dozens of people reported the same thing. They picked her up thinking she was a real person, and they drove with her, talked with her, listened to her story. But before they could reach their destination, she would simply vanish. No sound, no warning, just gone. The passenger door would be empty and they would be alone on the road again, confused and terrified. But Jenny Dixon Beach itself held more secrets. In 1973, 4 campers set up their tents on the beach for the night. As the sun went down and darkness fell across the sand, they saw something that made their blood run cold. There was a woman in a long dress standing at the edge of the water, reaching out toward them. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if she was trying to communicate something important, as if she was trying to warn them or call to them. This woman, locals believed, was the ghost of a woman who sailed aboard the Janet Dixon, a coal schooner that sank long ago. The woman washed ashore at this very beach, but her son, who was on the ship with her, did not. He drowned. He died in the cold, dark water, and his body was never recovered. According to legend, she has been searching for him ever since, walking the beaches at twilight, calling out into the darkness for her lost child. Other strange things have happened there. Workers at the nearby Wyong ambulance station, who have a clear view of the beach, have reported hearing footsteps at night. Footsteps with no one attached to them, footsteps that walk and walk and walk. Some have reported feeling like they were being held down, like something invisible was pinning them to their beds. Others have felt the sensation of being touched on the face by cold, unseen hands. The beach has become a place where the veil between this world and the next seems dangerously thin. 2 women trapped by their deaths, unable to move on, unable to escape the place where tragedy found them. One looking for her son in the dark water, one still trying to hitchhike away from the road where she died. Neither of them has found peace. Neither of them has found what they are looking for. And travelers in the area know to be careful, because sometimes if you are driving at the right time of day on the right road, you might pick up a passenger who is not what she seems, someone who will sit in your car, speak to you, seem real to you, until you realize that no one has been sitting next to you at all. Story 4. Changi Beach's Screams. Singapore during World War II. Terrible things happened at Changi Beach in Singapore. 66 Chinese men were executed there by Japanese soldiers. They were lined up on that beach under the sky and the sun, and they were killed. Their blood stained the sand. Their dying screams echoed off the water, and apparently those screams have never truly stopped. Visitors to Changi Beach report strange and disturbing experiences. Some have said they felt an unseen hand slap them across the face with tremendous force. They were standing alone on the beach with no one near them, when suddenly they felt the impact of a blow, hard enough to leave marks on their skin, hard enough to knock them backward. When they looked around, there was nothing, no one, just empty beach. Others have reported hearing a woman crying, not just any crying, but the sound of deep, profound despair, the kind of grief that comes from losing everything. Some have described a sense of being watched, of invisible eyes tracking their every movement. They feel like they are being hunted, like they should not be there. But the most disturbing reports describe something far worse. People have seen headless figures walking up and down the beach, walking in patterns, walking as if on patrol, walking as if they are searching for something or someone. And then there are the accounts that make the blood run cold. Visitors have reported seeing what appears to be human remains flying through the air above the beach, not blown by wind, moving with purpose, moving in patterns. And all around it there is the sound of screaming. The screams of the executed men, it seems, have become part of the beach itself. The beach has been called a place of terrible spiritual weight, a place where so much suffering happened so quickly that the suffering itself has embedded itself into the very ground. The sand remembers what was done there. The water remembers the blood. And the spirits of the murdered men remain unable to rest, unable to find peace, cursed to relive their final moments for eternity. Many visitors have reported leaving the beach feeling drained, feeling watched, feeling as though something was clinging to them even as they walked away. Tour guides have reported that cameras often malfunction there, that recording devices stop working without explanation, as if the spirits do not want to be documented, as if they want their suffering to remain invisible and forgotten, or perhaps they want it to be remembered only through fear. Changi Beach remains a destination for ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. But locals know the truth. It is not a place to visit after dark. It is not a place to visit alone, because the screams that happened there over 80 years ago have never truly stopped. They continue to echo across that beach, year after year, carried on the wind and the water, forever reminding anyone who hears them that some deaths are too terrible to be forgotten, and some suffering lingers long after the body has turned to dust. Story 5. Drunken Jack's Island, Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. Drunken Jack was a pirate. Not a good pirate with a heart of gold or noble intentions, but a real pirate. A ruthless sailor who sailed with Blackbeard himself and participated in the violence and theft that defined his life on the high seas. According to legend, Blackbeard and his crew had successfully captured an enormous amount of Caribbean rum, so much rum that their ships were becoming too heavy, too slow, dragging through the water like wounded animals. As they sailed past Murrells Inlet in South Carolina, Blackbeard decided to offload the rum. They anchored at a small island in the inlet and set the barrels on shore to keep them safe. While they were there, they decided to feast. They had fresh seafood, oysters, crab, all the delicacies that the inlet offered. And they had an unlimited supply of rum, case after case of it, all the alcohol they could possibly drink. Jack drank more than anyone else. He got absolutely drunk. The kind of drunk where the world spins and gravity seems to work in random directions. He found a quiet place under some bushes on the beach and lay down to sleep it off. He figured he would rest for a few hours, maybe sleep off the worst of the alcohol, and then rejoin the crew for more drinking and celebration. He did not wake up to any of that. When he eventually opened his eyes, he discovered something was terribly wrong. The beach was silent. The camp was empty. The ships were gone. Blackbeard and his entire crew had sailed away with the high tide and completely forgotten about him. They had left him behind, not out of cruelty necessarily, just out of carelessness. Out of the simple fact that when you are a pirate captain with a crew of drunkards, sometimes men get left behind, and sometimes they are just forgotten. Jack expected them to come back. He figured they would sail around, get organized, realize they had lost a man, and return to pick him up. After all, he was a crew member. He was useful. He could help them manage the rum inventory, help them sail to their next destination, help them steal and kill and plunder. Surely they would come back for him. Days went by, then weeks, then months. Jack survived on the island. We do not know exactly how. Perhaps he was able to fish. Perhaps he was able to hunt birds. Perhaps there was fresh water somewhere on that small strip of land. What we know is that he survived. He survived alone on that island for 2 years. 2 years of solitude. 2 years of wondering if anyone was ever going to come back for him. 2 years of drinking rum from the barrels Blackbeard had left behind. 32 barrels of rum. 2 years later, Blackbeard's crew finally returned to the island. They were back to retrieve the rum, the reason they had left it there in the first place. What they found was one of the most disturbing sights they had ever seen. On the beach there were 32 empty rum barrels. Every single one had been drained, and lying nearby, scattered in the sand, were the remains of a skeleton. The skeleton was roughly the size of Jack, but there was nothing else left. No clothes that could be identified. No belongings that could confirm who this person was. Just bones and sand and empty barrels. What happened to Drunken Jack during those 2 years? Did he slowly drink himself to death, consuming barrel after barrel of rum until his body simply gave up? Did he go mad from the isolation and the alcohol and the knowledge that no one was coming back for him? Did he kill himself when he finally understood that he had been abandoned? No one will ever know for certain, but the legend of Drunken Jack has lived on for over a century. Today, the small island is still called Drunken Jack Island. and locals say that sometimes on certain nights fishermen report seeing a figure on the island, a man who appears drunk and confused, staggering across the beach. A man who seems to be searching for something. A man who looks exactly like a skeleton wrapped in aged, decaying skin. When they approach to see if he needs help, he vanishes. But the barrels are sometimes found. Empty barrels that appear on the beach with no explanation. Barrels that smell of rum that is centuries old. Barrels that seem to have been moved recently, as if someone is still counting them, still trying to understand how he could have consumed so much alcohol and still lived. Or perhaps Drunken Jack did not live. Perhaps he died long ago and what fishermen see is just the echo of him. The ghost of a man who was abandoned by the only family he knew, cursed to wander that island forever, trapped between the living world and death, never able to move on, forever searching for a crew that will never return. To this day, if you go to Murrells Inlet and look out across the water at the small island in the distance, you can see why locals call it what they do. And if you are very careful, if you listen very closely, some say you can hear the sound of someone crying, someone calling out across the water, someone who is very, very drunk and very, very alone.